Hello and welcome back to Speed Demon Painting. Today we are taking a look at the latest Alliance ORBAT version 3.04, which went live on September 1st, 2023. Although I will be discussing the changes that were made in this ORBAT, this is not the main point of this video. The main point of the video is to go over what you can do with all the different units within the Alliance roster and how to make an efficient fleet from it. This is why I don't just go over the units in this ORBAT in alphabetical order, but I actually have them arranged per type of sprue that you can build them out of. This also gives new players hopefully a better idea of what you can make with all of the different ships and what they will add to your fleet. I plan to do a similar video for all of the 7 other factions as well. These do take slightly longer to make than how I was doing them previously, so be patient. I will try to make one video roughly every week with one of these ORBAT deep dives. If you are interested in these types of videos though, and you like this type of content, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for when that time comes. I will first be going over all of the different special rules that you can have that are very much unique to this faction, alongside with some of the weapon systems that are unique to them, and then I will go into what you can build out of the one-player starter set first. This is no accident. That means that if somebody is new to the game and wants to get into it, they can watch the first segment and get a good idea of what they can make out of each and every one of their new toys. Right then, onto the special rules for the Alliance. The first one is coordinated support. Models using weapons in support of a single lead weapon in any attack may use that rule, and it allows the model to support with any weapon rather than needing to match all the qualities. Remember, the normal rules state that you need to have the same qualities or you cannot use a weapon in support of a lead weapon. The Alliance can circumvent this. Weapons used in support in this way have their own qualities ignored and simply increase the attack dice pool by the value indicated of their crippled support at the corresponding range. Ramming weapons cannot use this rule though, and weapons with the submerged quality cannot use this rule in attacks against aerial units, and same deal, you cannot use aerial quality rules to attack submerged units. This basically means that you get to support with your crippled value, and you can just bake big dice stacks out of the Alliance if you're willing to sacrifice a few extra dice to do so. While you have this rule, you'll still want to make ships that have largely the same weapon type so they can support at full value obviously. However, if you're an experienced Alliance players, you can do some pretty cheeky stuff like supporting gun batteries for instance onto torpedoes to make sure that they all ignore the obscured keyword, for instance if you're shooting at submarines and all sorts of things. So it is quite a handy little rule, and so you're not punished overly for mixing and matching weapons, because you'll find quite often that a lot of these Alliance ships have these mixes. The second major rule is the for Valor. After this unit uses a Valor effect, you can roll a die. On an exploding hit, do not discard the card and instead return it to your hand. You cannot use this rule for Valor effects that do not directly involve this unit, and you may only roll once per card. This applies even if the thing was cancelled, so if you are facing a Fortunes of War ship and he cancels your Valor effect, you might be able to recuperate it if you're lucky. The third major thing is the Levant search, which is applicable to most of the skimmer ships that the French have. Attacks with the submerged quality actually have a harder time hitting you because they only gain a single hit from a heavy hit result rather than the usual 2 when attacking this model. Exploding hits are however unaffected by this rule. In the special operations phase of the round, while the unit is battle ready, this unit may make a Levant surge. For the remainder of that round, the unit is obscured, so they become harder to hit and your opponent cannot roll his exploding hit results again, or rather add an extra dice to it, and it doubles its drift. It ceases to be a skimming unit and instead becomes an aerial unit. A unit cannot make a Levant surge if it has already done so in the previous round, or if it's part of an attached unit where not all models have this rule. That means you get a nice little speed boost out of it and a defensive boost as well, but you have to be careful because going into the air and becoming an aerial unit means that pretty much the entire board gets to shoot at you, unless there is of course a lot of aerial terrain on the board as well, but you don't quite often see that on many tables, so you do have to keep in mind that you'll be high and mighty, but high and visible as well. Also, Added to this ORBAT is the ability to actually deploy as an aerial unit if you want to in a Levant search for the first round. So like we used to have with wave lurking, where you could deploy as a submerged unit, you can now start deployed in the air as well. But that does mean that you don't get to use it in the second round, obviously, but it does add a nice little extra amount of toughness to any units that were not quite able to hide themselves on the battlefield. Also, you have to keep in mind though that you will have to deploy your units first, but we'll see that that is not exactly the end of the world when it comes to French Levant skimmers. The French are also known for having better strike fighters, called the Malinois strike fighters, and these are a type of SRS token with the following differences. Tokens launched by units with this rule may scramble up to 10 inch, rather than the usual 5. Scramble is, by the way, when you start defending a friendly target, that is the target of an attack run, within 5 inch if you're already sent out to do any defensive work. Attack runs by SRS tokens from units with this rule also gain the hazardous rule on top of the piercing qualities that you normally find on other SRS tokens as well. This rule does not apply to Frelon Levant Bomber SRS tokens, which are a special type of token, which is their own special rule as well. The Frelon Bomber tokens have a certain capacity, battle ready and crippled capacity, and it is indicated in parentheses. Frelon bombers are a type of SRS tokens with a few differences. They can only be launched with a range of 30 inch compared to the normal 40 inch, however they do contribute 5 action dice to attack runs. They can be combined with other friendly SRS tokens in those attack runs, however. A friendly SRS token is removed for every 2 successes in an interception. However, you can only start intercepting the bombers once all other normal SRS tokens have been intercepted. And any attack run that has most of the tokens as a Frelon SRS tokens gain sustained, bomb and hazardous. So you lose piercing, but you gain sustain and bomb. If the number of Frelon SRS tokens in the attack run is greater than the mass of the attack run target, the action dice pool gains the devastating quality. That means that if you have enough bombers to reach the mass of the target, you have one of two options. Either the stack has hazardous and piercing quality. This is the case if the Malinois strike fighters are the majority, and of course devastating because you've reached the mass of the target. The other option is that you have a dice pool that has sustained, bomb, hazardous and devastating if you have enough Frelon bombers to reach the mass, and the Frelon bombers are the majority in the SRS attack run. These bomber SRS also cannot go on SRS recon flights, they cannot do SRS mine clearance, but they may use combat air patrol should they so desire. Frelon SRS tokens cannot make attack runs on aerial units, however, and must try to find new targets in this situation. If, for instance, you're attacking something that is a skimmer and it decides to do a Levant surge, you're going to have to start and look for a new different target. Now, I did not skip conscripted crew, but I am discussing it together with Rebel Yell. These two rules are used in the SUSA nation of the Alliance. The conscripted rule is actually something that is not good. The unit counts heavy counters or heavy hits as single successes rather than 2 when involved in assaults, so these units are way worse in assault because of their conscripted crews. However, Rebel Yell is a big bonus to compensate. Crippled models with this rule may still use the battle ready value of their weapons. This rule cannot be used, however, if the model has the emergency or chaos and disarray disorder token. 1 is fine if you just have a small little hazard, but once you get to level 2 you can't use this rule anymore. Also, this unit ignores the conscripted crew rule when making or defending an assault against their much hated enemies, the Union. Lore-wise, the SUSA are pretty much old Confederacy units that fled the Union and have sort of aligned themselves with the Alliance to sort of fight against the Union as much as they can. This is why you actually get to ignore that little rule if you're fighting Union. Another rule found on some French units is the Legionnaire assault pods. Models with that rule can assault within 6 inch rather than the usual 4 inch, and if you suffer any counter assaults you can just ignore that result. Furthermore, assaults made by this model gain the sustained and hazardous quality as well, allowing you to reroll a result that you don't like and giving a disorder token on top of any other things that happen during the assault as well. This rule, however, does not apply to supporting assaults. For instance, a ship that has it is the Furieux skimmer, and that one can be attached to any other flagships. The flagships tend not to have the Legionnaire assault pods, so if you're supporting the main assault by the flagship, you do not get any advantages from using the Legionnaire assault pod. Next up we have a rule that helps the Italians, the Scutum mine launchers. That says that before submerged units deploy, for each model in a unit with this rule, the controlling player may place a minefield marker anywhere in the play area, provided that the marker is at least 10 inch from any deployment zone. And you can get quite a lot of these mine launchers as well if you're playing with Italians, so playing against them literally is like playing in a minefield. It is an option that you have to model onto your actual Italian units, but the option is so good that I would suggest that you just model it on anyway, and yeah, just use it, because you'd be hard pressed for points to just drop these, in my opinion, because those mine tokens really can be a nightmare for your opponent. Next up we have the last page of the special rules, and these are the ones that actually pertain to the weapon systems. The first one is the Rostrata rule. It is a valor effect that you can use when you're attacking with a Rostratum naval ballista, something that is found on the Scorpio launcher from the Italians. If the initial target suffers 1 or more points of damage, then the unit making the attack may make a valor effect against an initial target of the same mass or less, mass 2 in other words, than the model making the attack. As a valor effect, the initial target receives a level of disorder and may be turned up to 90 degrees to a facing of the attacker's choosing. So you can really start screwing around with your opponent's placement as well through this rule, and I think it's just lovely. It was toned down a bit compared to what it was in the beta, but it's still quite strong. That naval ballista is a unique weapon, by the way, to the Alliance. It shoots 12 dice as a lead weapon and 7 in support in both the closing and the long range bracket, and it comes with extreme range as well. On top of that, it has piercing and magnetic, so it really screws over an enemy ship when you get hit by it. So it very much is a nasty weapon, because 12 dice tends to be enough to be able to hit the actual citadel of a target, allowing you to roll 2 critical dice, and on top of that, if one of those rolls wasn't the navigation lock, it will get that one as well, meaning you've got a weapon that has a very good chance of delivering 3 critical dice markers on a target, and then for a valor effect start flipping them around as well. A really strong weapon now. Next up we have the Solex generator, which is a unique type of generator found in the Alliance, and it gives the sustained quality to any heat lance set, or thermal bombs weapons used by that model. As a valor effect, all of the Solex generators in the unit may be used in the shooting phase with a 360 degree line of sight to make an attack against the initial target using the heat lance set weapon profile. So you can have it double as a heat lance set as well, provided that you play a valor card to do so. Generators can of course not be changed if they are listed on the profile themselves. That brings us to the heat weapons, which is also a unique Alliance weapon system. The biggest one is called the Heat Lance, which is quite potent in point blank range. As you can see, 9 dice as lead and 6 in support, and just starts degrading to 7 and 5 and 5 and 3 as the range bands increase. The Heat Lance set is the smallest version and doesn't even go up to long range. It just shoots as effectively as a Heat Lance does in medium range, albeit with 1 dice less in support, 7-4, and it shoots 5-3 in that medium range. That is still a hefty amount of dice though for a weapon that has very good qualities, namely hazardous and devastating. If you add sustained on top of that through the Solex generator, you're dealing about something that packs a lot of oomph in the short range bracket. The thermal cluster bombs are also affected by the Solex generator, but those are a type of torrent weapon, which means that you use the sort of flamer template, and they quite often are used to ships that are in the aft arc, or they have the aft firing arc as well, along with the hazardous and bomb quality. That usually means that you have to fly over enemy ships, and then you can start dropping a bunch of thermal cluster bombs on them to sort of do a carpet bombing run on the opponent. It's not like it never happens, but you do only use those weapons traditionally if you're like in turn 2 or 3. Next up we have the Terminator Assault, which is a type of assault token that can be launched by weapons or ships that have them. These assault tokens can be placed up to 20 inch away during the special operations step, and they are an assault token that gets resolved at the end phase but before SRS resolution. Each of those tokens contributes 5 action dice to an assault against the initial target, and you can launch as many tokens as the ship has mass. The Talon Auto Gyro tokens in base contact form a single stack, so if you send them from multiple ships they will stack together, and they count as the assaulting model. They also ignore counter assaults because they can't really take any damage because they are the ones doing the assault. Friendly SRS placed in contact with the initial target may still support your autogyro attack if you want to in that assault, although that's usually not the best way to spend your tokens anyway. I would just have them do their SRS attack run if you can. That usually causes way more damage than the assault ever could. All Talon Autogyro tokens in the stack are discarded at the end of that assault, so if you want to have a few ships that have a very terrifyingly long assault range, you can do so. This also neatly circumvents that conscripted crew rule, because they are the ones doing that assault and they don't have that rule, so definitely something to keep in the back of your head if you're picking a SUSA force. You can do some neat little assaulting with them as well. And then finally, 2 rules that have to do with how your ships do in a fire exchange. The first one is protected gun crews. That means that crippled models with this rule can still use the battle ready value for their weapons with the gunnery or broadside qualities. This rule cannot be used if the model has the chaos and disarray disorder condition and has no effects on supporting with the coordinated support rule, so don't expect to get any extra non-crippled values out of that one because you have coordinated support. And we also have reinforced waterline. This can be found on most of the surface units found in the French roster. Attacks with the submerged quality gain a single hit from a heavy hit rather than the usual 2 when attacking this model. Exploding hits are unaffected by this rule, and attack with the piercing quality also ignore this rule, although there are not that many that are piercing and submerged at the same time. And then finally, another special weapon that is of note for the Alliance is the Magnetic Bombard. They come in 2 variants, the Heavy Magnetic Bombard and the regular one. They are aerial weapons with the magnetic quality that also have the extreme range value quality, and they shoot best at that extreme range. This is a very neat little tool to have because it's quite easy to just give something navigation lock through them. It's a weapon upgrade that quite a few ships can make good use of to just disrupt that enemy formation as much as possible as well. That really is a strong suit for the Alliance, especially now with the Rostrata Ballista as well. When it comes to fleet selection, the Alliance does have a few noteworthy things. The Alliance faction battle fleet isn't necessarily that special. It basically doesn't give you a bonus unless of course it is the second battle fleet in your fleet, and then you can actually use the new strategic reserves battle fleet bonus, which was a bit nerfed compared to the previous edition. You can now still override and cancel your dice result to get a heavy hit counter, allowing you to come onto the board, but if you have to cancel and use that rule, you can only shoot using your crippled values rather than the full battle ready ones. What is a bit noteworthy is the French Frontline battle fleet. It's noteworthy because you can now take a Couronne class ship in there as well to lead your whole thing, and the Couronne is a large big carrier ship. So this is one of the first Frontline battle fleets that I can recall that actually has a dedicated carrier as an ability to lead them. But that is mostly because the French Frontline battle fleet is focused mostly on their surface units and not so much the skimmers, because those are used in the French Levant battle fleets. The French Levant battle fleet got a new rule, i.e. Saber Rattle. It used to have strategic reserves, but that had the awkward thing where carriers really did not want to be in reserve, because you're not allowed to launch SRS tokens if you come from reserves on that turn. So it's now Saber Rattle. And what does Saber Rattle do? Well, once both sides have deployed, but before any Vanguard or Shadowhunter moves are made, units in this battle fleet may be redeployed, provided that their new position is closer to an enemy unit than before this redeployment. Each unit in this battle fleet may only be redeployed once, and must be redeployed in their own deployment area. That means deploying with the French is rather easy. You basically drop them as far back as you can on your own board edge, and then just wait for the opponent to drop everything that he has, and then you can start redeploying your force and drop them at the very edge of the battle fleet, or a place where they would be closer to the enemy than they were before. This is quite strong because you can just wait out your opponent's deployment with your skimmers and just pull a number on them by deploying them completely at the other side of the table where he was expecting them. You can sort of wait and see where his weak points are in his formations and then just apply a lot of pressure there. This is something that is not only found on the French Levant fleets, by the way. The Italian Frontline battle fleet gets the same bonus, but does that with the more anvil-like units from the Italian roster. If you want valorous conduct in your force, there's only one way to get it, and that is the Italian support battle fleet. Valorous conduct allows you to change the value of a valor card that you've played to a result of 50 once per turn, so that you can get a nice little effect that is very difficult to counter for your opponent. What is nice to see here though is that these Italian fleets have quite a lot of Easter eggs in them. There's only 2 flagships released for the Italians so far, which is the Mars class mentioned in the Italian Frontline battle fleet, and the Minerva class, sort of a hybrid of a repair ship and a carrier, which is mentioned in the Italian support battle fleet. All the other ones, the Lorica, the Mercury class and the Tiber class ships, they're not even released yet, so expect to see some other boxes for the Italians coming soon as well. Exciting things to see, because I'm really looking forward to them. I think the Italians are absolutely drop-dead gorgeous ships. And then the last type of battle fleet you can include is a SUSA battle fleet. These are the ones that are, like I mentioned before, the Confederacy units, which are units that they share with the Union, their older battleship, where you can take a Columbia class, a Salvador class, which isn't even mentioned in here, in the ORBAT as well, so yet another Easter egg, or a Virginia class. And then you can have at least one surface unit where you can actually spam Gettysburg and Springfield class units should you so desire. On top of that, if you get this one, you get Command Override, allowing you to cancel all of the dice results, provided you haven't done any rerolls yet, and just try again, in case you've got a really crappy dice roll out of it. This one is once per game though. On top of that, a single unit with the French, Portuguese, Spanish or Italian trait may replace that trait with the SUSA trait and gain Rebel Yell and conscripted crew special rules as well, so you can start borrowing units from the other nations as well to include in your more rebellious SUSA force. In terms of patrons to add to your force finally, the French aren't exactly spoiled for choice, they only have 2. The first one is Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, the Prince President, giving all units in the force disciplined and elite crew rules. Disciplined allows you to ignore the emergency rule, which is quite strong because the French do excel at large units supporting each other, although the bonus to reduce the disorder when you're doing ramming is less useful for the French, because they don't really go around ramming all over the place. Elite crew can be handy though, because it allows you to reroll blanks during an assault and when defending from them as well. All in all though, it's only 2 victory points, and if you're going full French, it's well worth considering for the bonuses it brings, mostly because French forces really do rely on supporting each other through normal supports, but also coordinated support, and it's a shame if that falls away if you hit the 2nd level of disorder. The other one is Rafe Cortes, which is the Grand Admiral of the People. He only costs 1 victory point, and actually you lose that annoying conscripted crew rule in your SUSA force altogether. So if you're going full SUSA, this is quite a strong little build, even though the SUSA is a bit more limited compared to the other nations in the options that they can use. Now, onto the different ships that you can take in the Alliance fleet. The first one I'm starting off with is the Oriflamme class battleships. Why? Well, this one player starter set comes with an Oriflamme included in it, so this is probably the best starter point to begin with if you are a new player. As the name implies, the Oriflamme Grand Battlecruiser isn't quite a battleship. It's Mass 3 still, but slightly less sturdily built compared to battleships, which is why it only has Armor 7 and Citadel 14 to go along with it, along with a few less amount of hull points than you would expect from the bigger counterparts to battleships. However, you do only pay 230 points for them, which is a lot less than you would pay for their heavier brethren. And if you look at the amount of firepower it has, it's not that much worse. Traditionally, battleships come with 3 heavy gun batteries. This one comes with 2 heavy weapons, being a heat lance shooting 270 degrees in the front, and a heavy gun battery shooting 270 degrees in the back. On top of that, you get 2 smaller gun batteries as well, aimed at the front, so you do have a lot of weapon hardpoints on them. On top of that, you do get options to replace that heat lance as well for another heavy gun battery if you want to have an all gun battery loadout as well. The heavy rocket battery is not exactly something I would do, neither would I use that on the heavy magnetic bombard, because those weapons do have a bit of a different profile, and it's usually best to just all have the same weapons on the ship, even though this ship comes with a coordinated support rule. Apart from that, it also comes with a heavy rolling broadside which can be fired at port and starboard, and it comes with 2 torpedo turrets, which are the smallest type of torpedoes you can find, that are aimed both at 270 degrees to the left and 270 degrees to the right, port and starboard. Apart from the coordinated support rule, it also has the 4 Valor rule, allowing you to recover your used Valor cards if you roll that lucky exploding hit, and it comes with heavy firepower, allowing you to use up to 3 weapons as lead value rather than the usual 1. It comes quite handy because it got quite a lot of weapons that it can use that way. It also comes with maritime patrol, allowing it to shoot more effectively at submarines, meaning that it can just ignore the submerged keyword from the target, provided it comes within 10 inch of that target, or there is a friendly SRS acting as a type of spotter unit for it, and you can just ignore that. It also comes with the protected gun crews, so it will keep firing with all those gunnery weapons at full effect, and the reinforced waterline to protect it a bit against opposing submerged weapons. The protected gun crews is yet another reason why I don't recommend heavy rocket batteries on this ship at all. You can also swap out the rear weapon if you want to have a generator on there, either an Atomic Fury Magnetic Repulsion Field Shield, Shroud or Solex generator. Especially the Solex generator can be interesting if you're swapping out the 2 gun batteries that are aimed in the front for heat lance sets as well, because then you've got a full heat lance loadout. However, it needs to be said that if you're trying to do that, you're going to invest quite a lot of points for those weapon upgrades, and at that point you're sort of better off getting the Richelieu, which is a named variant of the Oriflamme. It's still an Oriflamme class ship though, so you can still use it instead of an Oriflamme if, for instance, you're making a French frontline fleet. It still comes with coordinated support, but it has gained focused gunnery, allowing you to add 2 extra dice to a gunnery attack, and allowing you to reroll blanks. On top of that, it also comes with that Solex generator stacked in the back, and so comes with a heat lance in the front that can be supported with 2 smaller heat lance sets as well, and those weapons will be re-rolling blanks and have sustained because of the Solex generator, which is quite a lot of re-rolls as well, which is quite strong on devastating weapons. Other than that, it mostly acts as the better version of the heat lance loadout that you can take on the Oriflamme battlecruiser, so for that small amount of extra points, I would just get the Richelieu instead if you were thinking about the heat lance build. Another option is to go for the full gun battery build, which is the Fish. It only clocks in at 245 points, which is 15 points more than the standard Oriflamme. It does have the full gun battery loadout, as you can see, and what do you gain for it? Well, you also gain focused gunnery, giving you 2 extra dice and reroll blanks. That in and of itself is quite good, but you also get command codes on top of it, which is pretty much like the Valor effect of the just cancel all of your dice in a particularly bad roll and just redo it again if you haven't done any of the reroll shenanigans before. That is a really strong option, if you ask me, in a fleet that has a hard time getting that those rerolls through command override, and command codes pretty much is a command override every single turn to a unit within 15 inch. The French very much are reliant on a high DPS output, shooting the enemy down before they really take too much punishment, because they can't really take it all that well, and so command codes is quite a strong option, because nothing quite sucks as hard as playing with the French and then completely whiffing your dice roll, and then you have to sit there and take damage, and yeah, that's really not their strong suit. All in all though, 3 excellent ships that you can experiment with if you're somebody who has picked up the one-player starter set and just play around with it. It's all just based on that neat little system where you can swap your weapons in Dystopian Wars, so just play with the one that you like best. They're all pretty good. Next up we have the options that you can build out of the French Frontline sprue. Now there are 3 things mentioned on this page, and we'll go on to the next ones on the next page. The first one is your most bog standard cruiser, the Chevalier cruiser. It is reasonably fast at speed 7. The toughness is quite okay at armor 6 and citadel 12, and with 4 hull points in both of them, it's actually quite unremarkable. But it does get quite a bit better if you keep into account that it has protected gun crews, allowing it to keep shooting with those heavy gun batteries even if they are crippled. And it comes with reinforced waterline, so it's quite well protected against enemy submerged attacks as well. Other than that, here's their usual coordinated support and the 4 Valor effect, which are like the main rules for a French ship. It really is a good one at 107 points. You can't much go wrong with them. If, however, you like the slightly heavier version, there's this also a solid option in the Charlemagne Heavy Cruiser. It comes with the same toughness values, however it is slightly less fast than the Chevalier Cruiser. What does it gain, however? Each one of these cruisers has the heavy firepower roll, on top of having an extra gun battery mounted into the 270-degree back arc of the ship as well. That means that you do have to be slightly more careful with the positioning, but if you don't mind getting a slightly more difficult ship to pilot, you are really getting quite a lot of extra firepower out of this unit. I would say that this option is for more experienced players because you've got the extra maneuverability, and because the ship becomes that much more expensive. That is almost 20, it's 28 points more expensive than the Chevalier cruiser, so you're really going to have to make the most out of it to get a good return on investment. Or if you're just somebody who who doesn't mind taking the hard route, going for Charlemagne heavy cruisers is definitely a good option. And then finally, your French Frontline sprues will always build 2 écuyères per sprue that you're getting, so you're getting 4 in the one-player starter set, and this is just a brilliant unit because there's 4 écuyère frigates in a unit as it is, and you can make it into a bigger squadron, including 2 extra models at a cost of 27 points per model, but I wouldn't do that because if you do that, you lose the attached to unit rule, which means that these small écuyère frigates can be attached to a units such as the Chevalier cruisers or the Charlemagne heavy cruisers, and that is really strong because attached units protect extra from aerial or submerged attacks, but these do so extra hard because they have corvette duty, giving a further +1 dice in a 4-inch bubble around them, so you can get to some really ridiculous SDV and ADV values with these French ships by using these écuyères as sort of attached units to your regular cruisers. In addition, they come with regular gun batteries, and those are nothing to sneeze at either. A gun battery can get up to 3 dice in closing range as a support, or 2 in point blank range, and if you're getting 4 extra of them, that means that your major attack coming from something like a Charlemagne can have up to 12 extra dice if you've got your positioning right as well, which is really strong. In fact, this page right here is something that you can't go wrong with, whatever you decide to build. On the next one we have the more special variants. The first one is the Loire Light Cruiser. This one only has a single heavy gun battery in the front and then has a regular gun battery in the back. So it's sort of an in-between unit, but they only clock in at 90 points as well, and they are a fair bit faster than even the Chevaliers at speed 8. However, once they get crippled, they do have a slightly lower citadel value than the other ships, and they only have 3 hull points in that crippled state as well, so expect them to go down faster. It's not the end of the world though, because at 90 points, again, quite cheap. On top of that, you get some extra utility out of them as well. They come with the Minesweeper rule, allowing you to sweep mines within 5 inches, so you don't have to sacrifice any units going over them. And on top of that, they have a Vanguard move, allowing them to make a cheeky little 5-inch move before the start of the battle, and especially if your opponent has been very aggressive with the mine placement, they can be swept even in turn 1 by this unit, which is quite strong. A new addition in this ORBAT is a named variant of Loire light cruisers called Les Ratons Laveurs, which, if I'm not mistaken, is French for raccoons. But if you do know, make sure you let us know in the comments section. I thought that was a funny little name for them as well. And if you look at the different names, the Tyrannicide, the Dessay and the Sévère, it does mean that there's a bit of a link to the French Revolution. You get all of that good stuff mentioned in the Loire light cruiser, but on top of that you get Devil's Own Luck as a bonus, along with focused gunnery for some extra firepower. You do lose Vanguard though, but it is replaced with Shadow Hunter, allowing them to redeploy after the mines have been placed, to really make sweeping up those mines even easier than before. Devil's Own Luck, for those who don't know, means that you can cancel any one Valor effect using any card really. You don't really have to exceed the value of the Valor card in order to cancel it, which is quite strong. And then the 5th version that you can build with the French Frontline sprue is the Picardy Literal Monitor. This one is one that has only a single heavy gun battery in the front and no other thing, so it's the lightest version of them all. It only clocks in at 85 points, and it has a similar profile to the Loire light cruiser, but you shave off 5 points for that rear gun battery. However, it does come with maritime patrol, so it's extra good at hunting down submarines, and it comes with protected gun crews, reinforced waterline and shallow draft, allowing it to ignore the negative effects of getting too close to terrain, in essence. Maritime patrol allows you to ignore the submerged keyword on your target, and that becomes really interesting if you upgrade these Picardy Literal Monitors with magnetic bombards. This is one of those vessels that you can definitely experiment with swapping them out for 5 points, bringing them up to 90 points, and if you then combine them with SRS tokens, they can really pull a number on enemy submarines by basically shooting them with aerial weapons, which the magnetic bombards are, because you just get to ignore the keyword. So that means that along with their torpedo turrets, you can have a unit that is extremely good at extreme range, which is something you don't quite find a lot of in the French roster. It's a bit more of a specialized unit. I wouldn't build it if it was one of my first ships as a new player, but if you're sort of starting to rack up the frontline squadrons because you're collecting more and more of them, it's definitely worth building and experimenting with. For your Levant sprues, you also have a couple of options, the first one being the Chasseur Levant Strike Cruiser. I would say this is the more basic strike cruiser that you can make out of the Levant ships. They have become slightly less expensive at only 123 points per model. However, they come with a bit of an odd mix at first, where they have 3 regular gun batteries and a heavy rocket battery as well. The good news is that you can swap out the heavy rocket battery for a heavy gun battery for a 5-point upgrade. So I actually consider their real points cost to be 128 points. However, for that 128 points, you're getting a frightful amount of firepower. The heavy gun battery that you would replace it with at medium range would be shooting 9 dice, and you would add 3 for every gun battery, giving you a colossal 18 dice to play with for a single ship. That is quite a lot, and I can't imagine many other cruisers that are able to muster that kind of a dice pool, especially since if you are supporting them, you are still doing so with 4 plus 3 times 3 with 13 dice per ship. That is something that most other cruisers can only dream of. So it is expensive-ish, but it packs a wallop. It is fast as well, especially because it can do the Levant surge to double the drift and all of that, giving it up to 12-inch movement speed, which is nothing to sneeze at, but it does lack a bit of the durability to stay in the fight for too long. So these very much are your hit-first glass cannon units of the French fleet. They are quite flexible in the type of loadout that you give them, though you can make them having a Solex generator, reducing the points cost slightly, but then you do have to pay 21 points to upgrade every single gun battery to a heat lancet, giving you a total of well, a points increase that is 16 points, and that starts pushing it up there in terms of amount of points spent. Mind you, with a Valor effect, you can use the Solex generators on a unit like this, as well as a heat lancet, and you can get to some absolutely absurd dice pools if you're getting into point blank. But at that point, you're investing almost 450 points into a unit that dies to a stiff breeze, and there's just, yeah, it doesn't sit right with me. You might disagree though, make sure you say it in the comments if you do, but I think that's more for very experienced players who are quite able to dodge enemy fire and know how to place them quite well to not have them be punished too hard by the opposing reaction. A very similar ship to it is the Furieux Levant Grand Corvette, which clocks in at 134 points, which is 11 points more than the Chasseur, but you do get the option to attach it to a French skimming unit as well, and the big difference between the two of them is the fact that this one also comes with Corvette duty, so slightly better at defending, but more importantly it comes with the Legionnaire assault pods, making it quite a bit better in assaults, especially if you look at the fact that it's got a freight 12 along with the elite crew options that you can get within the French fleet. These actually hit like a ton of bricks in assault, and they also are your landing vessels, so they're well worth considering building as well, or at least build one of them to be able to attach it to something like a Magenta class if you're buying that one later down the line. You do lose the rolling broadside if you're building the Furieux, however, so keep that in mind, but overall the amount of firepower isn't greatly affected. The main thing is the boost to the assault. And then the third skimmer option that you can make is the Volière Levant Strike Carrier, which is your typical 4/2 SRS capacity carrier. However, it's not quite your typical one compared to many other factions, because of course they are skimmers with the option to go into the skies as well, because they are French Levants. On top of that, they come with combat air patrol and the option to do SRS mine clearance and SRS recon, like you would expect, and like we mentioned at the start of the video, they come with Malinois strike fighters, meaning that they have slightly better SRS tokens than any other nation as well. And if you compare it, I mean, there's quite a few other nations that pay a similar amount of points for their carriers, so they're not hideously expensive. They just die slightly faster in their crippled value. But let's be honest, if they're crippled, they're mostly done for anyway. In addition, 2 regular gun batteries means that they do pack still a bit of an impressive punch in terms of firepower compared to most other carriers as well. It's just all about how aggressive you dare to be with them, because if you're running them up to closing range to the target, a unit of 3 of them will be launching quite a devastating launch of an SRS, but will still be chipping away more than a few hull points from enemy cruisers as well if you want. And the last things you can build with the French Levant sprue are the submarines. There is 1 submarine on each sprue as well, which can be built as either a Sirène attack submarine or the Épaulard artillery submarine. They both have got a bit of a rework. The Sirène attack submarine comes with the heat lance set, and it now has a forward deployment rule, allowing it to be deployed I think it was up to 12 inch away from enemy deployment zone, so you're right in your opponent's face with heat lancets from the get-go. It comes with 2 Siren submarines at 40 points each, but you can attach another 4 additional models to it at 40 points a pop. And when you have a unit of 6 of them, that really is quite a devastating volley. Very close range at the very start. You just have to be careful that your expensive unit doesn't get obliterated instantly by maritime patrol ships when you do, because with Citadel 10 they tend to get blown to bits quite fast, and that's a shame for a 40-point unit. But again, it all lines up with that hyper-aggressive playstyle that the French have to bring to the table. If you want to have something that plays slightly more conservatively, you can go for the Apollard artillery submarine, which can hang back far away because they have those extreme range magnetic bombards in them. Just a regular type though, which shoots with 6 dice in the lead weapon and 4 in support, but comes with that lovely little magnetic quality, allowing you to lock in the steering wheel from opposing ships from afar and disrupting the opposing force a bit more. They also come with Shadow Hunter as well, allowing them to redeploy. It's not the biggest deal for submarines because they tend to deploy last anyway, but it's still handy if you want to avoid opposing hunter submarines, for instance, because they can make short work of your submarines if they're firing regular torpedoes, of course. And they also come with Spotter, so if you're combining them with stuff like the Voliere, you can actually gain the ability to reroll blanks or take away your opposing forces' obscured bonus as well, which makes them really strong artillery pieces. Again, you can get up to 6 of them into a unit at a reasonable cost of 37 points per model, which is not bad at all. I suppose the real question you have to ask yourself if you're a beginning player is just how aggressive do you want to be. You've got quite a few ships that have to get up close and personal with the enemy. These Sirene attack submarines do so at the very start, but you have to almost always activate them first so they don't get blown up, whereas you can hang back a bit with the Apollard artillery submarine and just chip away at the enemy at range. That mostly does it for most of the French regular ships. Now of course the French still have many other flagship options, the first ones being the Couronne and the Magenta. The Couronne isn't released yet as of making this video, but I don't imagine it's going to take long because the artwork is actually on the first page of this ORBAT, so that means that a release is pretty imminent, so expect to see it in the next few weeks or months. The Couronne Grand Carrier clocks in at 320 points and is a big carrier with an SRS capacity of 10 and 6, along with quite a few of the other advantages that come with being an alliance ship, such as the coordinated support and the 4 Valor effect. On top of that, it comes with 4 Tunes of War, allowing you to cancel opposing Valor effects as well, and that is a really strong ability, making it a super appealing ship to actually use in your fleet. In terms of weapons loadout, it comes with a heat lance that can fire to the front, and it comes with 3 rocket batteries, 2 of which can fire at the front, and then one of it has the rear arc defense a bit as well. If you're going to be upgrading any weapons to, for instance, heat lance sets with this one, I don't recommend swapping out the rear rocket battery, because chances of you making a solid attack with them are less than stellar. A very interesting option though, and especially looks wise, because the artwork shows this upgrade, La Dame Liberté, which makes it 25 points more expensive. Of course, it makes it have a citadel mounted statue of the goddess Liberty, and if you upgrade it in this matter, it gains a Solex generator, allowing you to have sustained on all of those heat lance weapons that I've mentioned before, and it gains the inspirational rule, allowing you to reduce the amount of disorder for a lot of ships. I think that is important in a force where you have the reinforced waterline, so that's definitely an upgrade I would always consider. Mind you though, if you're doing that, you're adding 25 points to it, along with a further 14 points for upgrading the rocket batteries to heat lancets, which is something I would do if you're doing La Dame Liberté upgrade, and that makes it clock in at almost 360 points. Do I think you're getting a good deal out of it at 360? Yes, I do. I still very much do. If you don't want to go for carriers though and you want to expand with your next flagship, you can take a Magenta Levant battlecruiser. This one clocks in slightly more than the other battlecruiser, the Oriflamme, at 241 points, but it does come with two heat lances, one 270 degrees to the front and one 270 degrees to the back, which means that this ship of course has a more side-facing profile if you want to use both heat lance sets. It does come with one rocket battery that can join in on that, and it comes in with two gun batteries that are slightly more awkwardly placed because only one of them can join in on a side-facing attack. This is why a traditional upgrade for the Magenta Levant battlecruiser is to replace the rear heat lance with a Solex generator. Now the good news is you're dumping a heat lance for it, so you get a massive minus 20 points reduction for doing so, bringing the points cost down by 20, allowing you to upgrade the three other gun batteries to heat lancets. Now, it is known that that is the best option. You pay a hefty 10 points for each heat lance set. Doing that 3 times and then deducting the 20 points means the ship clocks in at 251 points, but to me that is one of the more optimal builds that you can run this one as. And then the question is, what Valor effect should I use when I'm firing with all of those heat lances? Should I use the heavy firepower rule, or should I use the Valor effect that is built into the Solex generator to have another heat lance set added to it? And the response is heavy firepower. It doesn't matter what range bracket you're in, you're going to get most of your dice by using heavy firepower. If you do so, you're getting an absolutely brutal 9 dice from your heat lance, 2 times 7 from 2 of your 3 heat lance sets, and then another 4 for a 27 dice attack, which has the sustained quality, hazardous and devastating, that can really lay waste to quite a lot of enemy ships. The only thing you have to be careful about though is to not just go charging in and being a bit too trigger happy. Sure, the Magenta can move up to 13 inch if it's doing a Levant surge, but it's quite a fragile ship for the amount of points that you pay for it. With only 7 armor and 13 citadel, you're going to see the hull points disappear quite quickly on it. So yeah, be wary, don't just go charging in like a maniac. This is more of a scalpel instead of a blunt hammer. Another ship that saw some major improvements in this ORBAT is the St-Michel flagship. The basic St-Michel Levant battle carrier has now been reduced to 220 points, and it now comes with the option to change that heat lance, which was sort of awkwardly pointing towards the aft. It can now be changed with a generator. Now when it comes to choosing a generator, I would definitely go for one of the more defensive ones, because Atomic and Fury are not exactly the special ones. Repulsion is something that you definitely do not want on this ship. That leaves you with either a magnetic, a shield or shroud generator. You have to remember that this ship can actually get the obscured rule if it's using its Levant surge. So if I have to choose between these 3, I would either go for the shroud generator to always have it be shrouded without the need for it to go skyborne and exposing itself to more firepower, or alternatively the magnetic generator if it really wants to annoy some of those rockets and disrupt them a bit when they are trying to fire at them. That is also a solid option in my book. The shield generator is something I wouldn't choose because you cannot use it in conjunction with the shrouded rule, and yeah, this ship has the innate ability to gain it, so yeah, the shield generator just doesn't seem that appealing to me. Other than that, it's a SRS capacity ship of 6 and 4, which is not quite as much as some of the larger carriers, but again, you're only paying 220 points, and it now comes with an extra hull point as well, giving it 5 hull points before it goes into that crippled state. You're not losing half of your SRS either when you're going crippled, so it still remains quite a strong little option. And if you want to, you can take a named variant called Le Phoenix for 248 points, and the big difference between the two of them is the fact that this is a Fortunes of Warship. So if you want a cheaper version of a Fortune of Warship next to the Couronne, you can take it through this named variant of Le Phoenix. Le Phoenix does come with a shield generator, which is, like I've discussed earlier, not ideal if you like to do a lot of Levant surges, although I would definitely not be exposing my Fortunes of Warship to more firepower than it absolutely needs to, so I wouldn't be using Levant surge all that much if I'm using this ship. You are also losing out on the ability to send out any command codes if you're taking this one, so this one doesn't need to be on the front lines as much as the regular St-Michel does. The alliance is made up of two major nations, the Italians and the French definitely have a lot more releases to look forward to as well, some of which were teased in this order of battle, but which are not out yet, and so I'm not spending too much time on them. The first one being the Vauban Sky Fortress, which seems to be a large flying unit, skimming unit I should say, without the ability to go up into the sky and do a Levant surge, as this is a lumbering ship. The cool thing about it though is that it brings the both regular SRS capacity and Frelon bombers along as well, so if you want to play around with those, there's an option for it soon. So it does look like the French roster overall has got quite a lot of different carrier options in there as well. The other option is the Alma Levant support carrier, so there's probably going to be a third type of plastic sprue for the French. The Alma is one of those Mass 2 options, which is a ship that can actually become an attached ship, and that brings a bit of heavy rocket firepower to them. Now, lore-wise, these are more ancient designs, first generation skimming ships, and they are quite a bit slower compared to their more modern counterparts. But they do bring some neat little rules, like the advanced repair facility rule for this one, allowing you to patch up some of the damage that your fleet encounters as it goes along. On top of that, it comes with mine layer and heavy escorts, providing some extra protection as well. So this looks like it will be an interesting unit, although I'm not too sure about paying 107 points for something that has one heavy rocket battery and one regular rocket battery. One that appeals to me way more is the Dieppe Levant Solex cruiser. This one comes with Heatlands and Heatland set, instantly boosting the firepower, but you are paying a hefty 124 points for it. However, the really cool thing about it is this was one of the first experimental ships to use Solex generators, and they now have the upgraded version called the Francisco Solex generator, and this one basically makes all friendly models within 10 inch of this unit with mass 2 or greater count as being equipped with a Solex generator. So if you want to go ham with Heatlands builds, the Dieppe Levant Solex cruiser is one that is almost an auto include if you decide to go that route. The only thing that has me worried slightly is the fact that this is built on the slower variant, whereas the Chasseur is on a speed 8 ship. So yeah, you don't want it to become awkward and you getting out of position with your Dieppe Levant Solex cruiser. So definitely something that is going to require a bit of finesse in terms of maneuvering from the Alliance player when this ship comes out. The third option for the Mass 2 is another utility version, the Gascony Levant Merchantman, which clocks in at 100 points, comes with that same heavy rocket battery and a regular rocket battery, but adds the options to have logistical support to your fleet, allowing you to draw an extra Victory and Valor card, and that is a big deal if you're using a lot of Valor effects like you can in the Alliance, and comes with Mine Layer as well, allowing you to drop a mine token per ship of course, and a supply depot, allowing you to restock on any limited weapons that you have, and removing some disorder and that sort of stuff. And then for the Mass 1 ships, that seems to come with Honor Levant Destroyer, so we're getting a skimmer destroyer, which comes equipped with 2 gun batteries and a picket broadside as well, on a ship that moves fast enough. I mean, Levant Surge is going to be slightly less of a deal, because doubling drift isn't a big deal when you're only drift 1, of course. They are pricey at 42 points per model. You can get them into units of up to 5. I'm not sure if 42 points is something that is that appealing for a ship that only has 2 gun batteries and a picket broadside, but yeah, given the speed of them and the fact that they can go over terrain should they so desire, probably strong enough to have them have that 42 points cost associated with them. And then the very last type of build, one that will definitely be useful if you're going SRS heavy. Is the Marseille Levant bomber carrier. Clocks in at 134 points, so pretty much the same points cost as a Voliere already, but it comes with Frelon bombers, 3 and 2 in the crippled state. The Frelon bombers, the ones that drop for 5 dice. So if you're investing quite heavily into things like a Couronne, etc., getting a few Marseille in there to chuck in some cheeky bombers to make your stacks get devastating as well worth the points cost, if you ask me. But yeah, all in all, it looks like the French definitely have some very fun little units to look ahead to. And with the French being covered, let's move on to the Italians. If you want to get into the Italian side of the alliance, there are 2 big Battlefleet sets that you can buy for your flagships. The first one being the Mars Heavy Battleship, and the other one being the even bigger box, the Minerva Assault Carrier box. The Italians are more of a tough unit entry into the mix, which meshes well with the more fast and maneuverable but frail French, and the Mars really exemplifies this. It is not fast, with speed 5, although for such a heavy little chonker of a ship with armor 8 and citadel 16, along with 9 hull points, well, that's still pretty fast for such a big ship. In terms of points cost, it clocks in at 270 points, which is at the higher end for a battleship, but then again, most battleships do not come with their all built-in advanced repair facilities as well to increase their toughness significantly and to be able to repair some of the damage that they take along the way. On top of that, you get quite a lot of extra weapons on them. It comes with a heavy prow ram, making ramming attacks even better. It comes with 3 heavy gun batteries that are all neatly aimed towards the front arc as well, which makes this one of the more easy to pilot ships and incredibly beginner friendly. And it comes with a heavy broadside for some up close and personal work, and a heavy torpedo salvo as well, which is absolutely nothing to sniff at. Now, I've not experimented with it yet, but it does seem like one of those ships where doing the triple heat lance upgrade for 24 extra points is something that could be well worth experimenting with, because the ship is tough enough to sort of warrant something that clocks in at just under 300 points. And if you want some very big point blank oomph, you're definitely getting it if you do that upgrade. However, given its speed, it might take you a while before you actually get within that point blank range, but it would definitely have staying power and then quite a bit of a bite up close and personal. If you like to hang back and launch SRS tokens at your opponent, the Minerva Assault Carrier is the other option, also at 270 points. This one is Mass 4, now comes with a nice little Armor 8, so that has been upgraded, and the hull point distribution is now 7 and 7. Combine that with an advanced repair facilities of 3, allowing you to throw 7 dice during a repair phase. You're looking at something that is quite likely to repair a point of hull damage on itself every single turn, making it quite a strong little thing. Heavy firepower can actually be used because it comes with 3 regular rocket batteries, but with regular rocket batteries you're not making the most out of it. It does, however, only come with a normal torpedo salvo, so if you like to launch large torpedo salvos at your enemy, that's not really the best of it. However, you don't really have to, because for long range work it comes with 8 SRS tokens, so you can definitely hurt something from far away. I wouldn't go around upgrading any of the rocket batteries for something like gun batteries or heat lance sets. This is a ship that is designed to hang back, and yeah, you definitely want the rocket batteries to make sure that you're able to do so. So I wouldn't go playing around with different weapon loadouts on this ship. Both the Mars Battle Box and the Minerva Battle Box will come with Italian Frontline sprues, and you can make quite a few different Mass 2 ships out of those. The first things that you can build with that sprue are mentioned here. We have the rather standard Gladius strike cruiser, the heavier Spatha attack cruiser, and the Cestus Zebek, the small Mass 1 ship. The Spatha attack cruiser comes with 2 heavy gun batteries, one aimed towards the front and one aimed towards the back to 70 degrees, along with a regular gun battery aimed in the front arc, and they come with a prow ram so you can actually go ramming your opponent if they get too close. On top of that, you get a tertiary weapon system in the form of a torpedo salvo. These Italian ships all come with the ablative flank armor rule. That means that if your opponent is shooting at them from the flank arc, you can affect a number of exploding hit results up to the mass value. So in the case of a Spatha, up to 2 exploding hits can be affected, and they do not roll any additional dice when it comes to generating them from an exploding hit result. On top of that, the Spatha gets focused gunnery, allowing it to get +2 dice on 1 gunnery attack, and allowing it to reroll blanks when it does, so there's quite a lot of firepower on those, especially with all of those gun batteries being aimed at your opponent. It does very much have a side-firing profile though, which is slightly difficult to pilot along with those torpedo salvos. I do have a video up on the channel though, if you haven't seen it yet, on how to make the most out of aft-facing weaponry by doing a sort of an S maneuver, and I do suggest you check that one out if you plan on building this one. A very interesting option as well for any of these Italian cruisers is the option to take that Scutum mine launcher, allowing you to deploy a mine token for a mere 10 points per model. I mean, that does boost this one up to 140 points, but that's well worth it if you're throwing a bunch of mine tokens around that way to really disrupt the opposing player's plans. If the heavy Spatha cruiser, however, is a bit too points intensive for you, you can always downgrade a bit to a Gladius strike cruiser. The only thing you're really missing out on is the ability to ram your opponent. It doesn't come with the heavy prow ram, the Gladius, and it also loses one of the regular gun batteries that are mounted on there. That's not too big of a deal for 30 points though. This is still a very respectable cruiser, and like you can see from the stats, these Italian cruisers come with Citadel 13, so they won't be eating too many catastrophic hits on the way there. You do lose out on the focused gunnery rule, however you are gaining the sharpshooter rule, allowing you to reduce the Citadel by up to 2 if you're hitting with gunnery weapons. If you're a beginning player though, you can definitely not go very wrong with the Gladius strike cruiser, especially because it also comes with that easy +10 points per model for the Scutum mine launcher as well. Now for the Mass 1 ships, these are also fairly standard. They're 30 points for a Sistus Sebec. It only comes with 2 hull points, which is not that much for a frigate, although with Armor 5 and Citadel 10, that means that a 10 hit destroys it in one shot anyway, so hull points 2 isn't the biggest deal. They also come with flag barrage and focused gunnery, meaning that they can use their gun batteries to great effect, and with flag barrage they might even pinch out a couple of opposing SRS tokens along the way. Flag barrage allows you to roll 2 dice per ship with that rule on a unit that has SRS tokens on it within 15 inch of the Sistus Sebec unit. For every exploding hit you roll, you're allowed to remove 1 enemy SRS token in this case. So yeah, it's a bit of extra protection against that. Really good and very useful for the Mass 1 ships. If you are going to be using this unit though, make sure that you upgrade it to a full unit of 6 models. It clocks in at 180 points, and that's still very decent for what you're getting. The 2 other options for the Italian front sprues are the very fast Axilla fast cruiser, clocking in at 96 points. You get the prow ram, and this one can definitely use it if it's moving like greased lightning like this, because it moves 9 inch on its own, with a drift of 2, but it also has linear dash, allowing you to add an extra 2 movement points if you don't take any corners. But why would you if you're going full speed ahead with that ram weapon? In terms of weapon loadouts, it's also good news because you get your heavy gun battery aimed in the front arc and your regular gun battery as well, so it's a full forward facing profile, and this is about as point and click of a unit that you can get. It's very easy to pilot if you're a beginning player. You just point it at the thing you don't like, and then if it gets there, it will no longer be there. On top of that, the Vanguard rule allows it to cheekily make it up 5 extra inches into the board in turn 1, so that definitely is a lot of pressure on the opposing team to do something about this unit or die a horrible death. Slightly more subtle, but still with that pro ram, is the Pilum monitor. Clocks in at 85 points, so you're getting an 11 point reduction compared to the Axilla fast cruiser, and for that you're mostly losing the regular gun battery that it had in the front arc. It is a fair bit slower compared to the Auxilia cruiser, though if you want some extra utility and you want to remove some of the mines, possibly from the mines that you've been putting down yourself, because it can always bite you in the butt if you're not careful, then the Pilum Monitor is a bit of an insurance for that, let's call it that way. Apart from frontline sprues, the Italians also have support sprues, and there's quite a few different things that you can build out of those as well. There are two Mass 1 options, the first one being the Sagita Hunter submarine, clocking in at 40 points per model and launching a torpedo salvo. They come with Pack Hunter as well, so you gain extra shots the more numbers you have. If all 5 of them, the maximum squad you can get, shoot at the same target, that means that you're getting an extra 5 dice out of it, because you add 1 die per contributing member. On top of that, they can also place 1 mine token for the squad, because they have the auxiliary mine layer rule, which is not quite the full mine layer, but only 1 token for a unit. The Peugeot Destroyer is the other option that comes with 2 gun batteries, slightly cheaper than the Levant version that we've discussed earlier, only clocking in at 78 points or 39 points per model, but it also comes with that Pack Hunter rule, allowing for extra large volleys as well. This one can include up to 4 additional models, which is really good when there's all 6 of them firing at the enemy, especially with gun batteries. They stack to very high numbers if you get them in closing range, so a very good destroyer unit to start experimenting with if you're an alliance player, an Italian alliance player. Most of the things that can be said about the Scorpio artillery cruiser were already said when we were discussing the special rules and that Rostratum naval ballista. That is the one that under some good circumstances can slap up to 3 critical dice markers on most opposing ships, because of how nasty that weapon is, on top of being able to turn the enemy ship as well up to 90 degrees if the mass is 2 or less. It really is just one of the heavier disruptors of the opposing fleet. The actual damage output of the Scorpio artillery cruiser is not immense. You're mostly taking it for the disruption force, if you ask me, because the Rostratum naval ballista, sure, it does throw 12 dice, which is not nothing, but it's mostly the debuffing effect that you're getting into, because for 132 points you can get something that chucks way more dice in the Alliance roster already, such as the Chasseur Levant. Spotter is just something that makes it even more reliable, because if you chuck an SRS token at the target for those Rostratum naval ballistas, you can re-roll your blanks, or you can take away opposing obscured bonuses as well, making their firepower even more reliable if you're willing to combine them with your carrier ships. So these pair really well if you've gone for the Minerva as your main flagship. Now, even if you didn't buy the Minerva, you can still use your Italian support sprue to make a Jupiter support carrier. In fact, for only 130 points, I think this is one of the more underrated units in this roster, mostly because the SRS capacity doesn't even drop that much if you actually cripple it. It only goes down to 4-3, which is highly respectable. The weapon systems on this ship do leave something to be desired. We mustn't forget those Levant Volières were clocking in at 134 points and came with 2 gun batteries, so that's like a destroyer amount of firepower on top of that, whereas this ship doesn't have anything of that. Just comes with a torpedo salvo, which isn't bad, but you'd expect a bit more for a 130 point unit, of course. The last option that you can make out of the Mass 2 ones from the Italian support sprue is the Vulcan repair ship. This one can be attached to your Italian flagships and only clocks in at 75 points, which is already quite a good deal really for something with 4 hull points in crippled and 4 in battle ready. Add to that the fact that it has advanced repair facilities too. That means that if you've got a Minerva and you're activating it as a single unit, you can make 2 separate repair tests, which is important because the advanced repair facilities allows you to repair a hull point per repair test that you've made. So you can try once to get that lucky exploding 6 to repair hull damage for 7 dice, and then if a Vulcan repair ship is attached to it, you can try again for 4 dice, potentially removing up to 2 points of damage. Like I said, you could do a lot worse than that for 75 points, mostly because the Italian flagships all have advanced repair facilities, and this basically allows you to have a shot at a double dip for repairing damage. The third major sub-faction nation within the Alliance is the Socialist Union of South America, the SUSA, and those come with two potential flagships. Both are made from the same box though, the Columbia Heavy Battleship or the Virginia Assault Battleship. The Columbia Heavy Battleship basically is a large gunboat with some impressive defensive stats. Armor 8 and Citadel 17 is some of the highest you can see in the game. Couple that with 10 hull points in the battle ready state and only 260 points, and this is one of the toughest nuts to crack. Add into that the Rebel Yell, allowing you to still fire at battle ready state if your disorder isn't too bad. You get something that can get really nasty to take down. In terms of firepower, it is definitely not a slouch. It comes with 3 heavy gun batteries, 2 of them pointed 270 degrees to the front and then 1 of them pointed towards the back. On top of that you get 2 small rocket batteries that you can actually swap out now if you want for gun batteries for 5 extra points should you so desire. I have to say though, this does require a bit of conversion work because the rocket batteries are actually molded onto the actual ship sculpt, so it'll probably require you to get the saw out. If you're a young'un, make sure that you ask your dad to do this for you, because that might not be a straightforward conversion. That side firing profile though isn't the end of the world, because this ship comes with contra rotation, allowing you to basically make the drift 0. Mind you, if you do so, this becomes a very slow ship to move because it's only 4 speed, but somewhere during its move it is allowed to turn up to 90 degrees left or right, so you can get that side firing profile really easily if you are prepared to sort of give up some of the speed. It's not the end of it, because if you're using the gun battery loadout, you kind of want to stay at closing range anyway, and so being able to sort of pump the brakes by making your drift 0 with this ship is very useful, and that means that you can keep this ship at arm's length where it belongs. And it's not just the rocket batteries doing their work. In terms of broadsides for that firing profile, you got 1 heavy broadside and a regular broadside as well. So if your enemy does manage to get up close, there's a nasty little surprise in it as well for your opponent with those 2 broadsides. If you want a slightly more aggressive version though, you can go for the Virginia Assault Battleship. It costs 10 points more, it does lose the heavy gun battery at the back, but it basically replaces it with this sort of Talos auto-gyro platform, allowing it to launch assaults up to 20 inches away through the Terminator assault that was discussed at the top end of this video. This basically makes it throw a 15 dice assault that doesn't really suffer all that much from the whole downside of conscripted crew, and remember, your SUSA force can dump that annoying little rule for just 1 victory point through the patron, so it's not the end of the world, is it? In addition to that, it comes with Flak Barrage 10, so if you want some nice little anti-SRS tech in there, this is definitely a way to do so. If you're building pure SUSA, these guys do not have carriers yet because it's such old school technology, which means that you do want a bit of extra protection. So if I was making a pure SUSA force and you did have to glue it down, I would be going for the Virginia Assault Battleship myself, although don't get me wrong, there is something to be said for the Columbia for sure. The SUSA only has 1 sprue available to it, which is called the Ore War Veteran sprue. A bit of an odd name, but it mostly refers back to the Ore War as a historical event within the dystopian age, when the Confederates were still fighting with the Union, and yeah, those veterans can either be built as Union ships or as SUSA ships for the Alliance. The first one being the Providence Merchantman, definitely the cheapest version of only 55 points, which can become an attached unit to any SUSA unit. On top of that, it adds 2 extra gun batteries worth of firepower and a broadside to the mix as well. I'll be brutally honest, that is really good. I mean, this is the amount of firepower that you pay roughly 40 points for. With most nations, usually for a ship that has about 3 hull points. You're doing so in this SUSA setup for a fully fledged cruiser with armor 6, Citadel 12 and 8 hull points to go along with it. This is incredibly hard to take down. In addition to that, you also get a neat little utility bonus with Useful Freight, which is an ability that allows you to look at the top card of your deck, and then if you don't like it, you can always chuck it into the discard pile, but if you think it's a really good one, you can just place it back. That means that you do not get a lot out of it by taking a bigger unit, because every model can technically do this, but you don't have to, because these do not come in a squadron. But be aware though that if you have a lot of Providence merchantmen and you attach them to many different units, you might lose out on that ability. If your top card is a really good one and you place it back, you're not going to throw it away with the next merchantman, is all I'm trying to say. The Springfield Corvette is the SUSA Mass 1 ship, really strong option for 100 points, for a ship that only has 2 hull points with Citadel 10, but most importantly comes with the Corvette duty, boosting the ADV and SDV of any nearby ships by +1, in addition to any other bonuses you get, such as being an attached unit. Really quite good, because well, the armor of all of these SUSA units is really good, but their ADV and SDV values, as you can see on this slide, really do leave something to be desired. So these Springfield Corvettes play a crucial role in increasing that slightly. Other than that though, you can't really fault them. This is a super solid unit at only 25 points for something with a gun battery and a light broadside on top of Corvette duty. Yeah, brilliant little unit. The Gettysburg was one of those heavy monitors that was not the most popular one. I mean, it's fairly slow. It does come with a heavy broadside, mind you, so that's a big buff compared to where it used to be. It has 1 heavy gun battery coupled with 2 small gun batteries. That isn't the worst, because, you know, that's at ideal range, 9 dice from the heavy gun battery and then 2 times 3 for a 15 dice attack for 121 points. That really isn't too bad, but it is a bit slow. It's tough as all boots though. I personally like this entry. The only weird thing about it is that you have a weapon system that wants to stay at closing range and then heavy broadsides to top it off. So it's in a bit of an awkward position. It wants to sort of drive down into the middle of it and then shoot at targets that are further away, I suppose, but sometimes that causes line of sight issues, etc. Takes a bit more of a more skilled player, I suppose, to get the most out of it, but in terms of bang for buck, you are getting a lot for your 121 points, if you ask me. Now this thing isn't the slowest if it's moving in a straight line though, because it does have full steam ahead, allowing it to double its drift, provided it is not taking any turns. And one thing that I personally haven't tried yet, but I can't wait to try out, is to take this ship, equip it with heat lancets and heat lances, making it clock in at an eye-watering 143 points, but it is 143 points that it is just barreling towards you with a heavy broadside and a bunch of heat lances on there, and that is the type of unit that your opponent is going to have to respond to, because well, in 2 turns that thing's going to have moved 20 inches up the board, and it will most likely be hitting you in point blank range as well. So it's just an accident waiting to happen for your opponent if he leaves that one alone. But it is also a heavy points investment, don't get me wrong. It might be a good distraction Carnifex type of unit though, and a distraction Carnifex, if you're not used with that term, is something that looks very scary coming towards you, making you want to pump a lot of firepower into it. The Sumter landing ship is another build option that is pretty much the cheaper version of the Terminator assault ship, allowing you to launch 2 Terminator assault tokens because it is a Mass 2 ship. In terms of other firepower though, it is almost negligible. This is the sort of firepower that you'd expect from a frigate instead of something that is 83 points. However, with its shallow draft and the fact that it's a landing vessel, it might actually come into its own once those landing vessel rules get introduced. Sadly though, this ship does not have that full steam ahead rule, which makes launching the assaults slightly more difficult compared to something like a Gettysburg. One of the more popular build options was the Saratoga Littoral Cruiser though, which is a very similar ship, although it comes with a heavy gun battery in the front as well, along with that gun battery for a bit more medium range firepower. Mind you, you are paying quite a lot of extra points for that. When you think about it, it is a 38 point upgrade. Nothing to sneeze at. You're basically paying a lot for that extra heavy gun battery that comes along with it. And you lose the landing vessel rule but gain coastal bombardment, allowing you to damage a bit extra on immobile structures and ground targets. Not sure if all of that justifies the 38 points cost difference, mind you. So in pure gaming terms, this is, to me, one of the less interesting units you can build for the SUSA Ore War Veteran sprue. And then to round off the Alliance fleet, there are the Portuguese platforms. Now these are the platforms that you can buy and find in sets, such as the recent Cyclone of Shadows campaign box. It comes with stuff that can be used as terrain, but if you so desire, you can also use these models within your own force as these sort of immobile strategic assets. Take for instance the smaller MAS 2 Elvas offshore support platform, clocking it at 68 points. In terms of the amount of firepower it gets, it's not massively impressive. It's just 2 gun batteries at 360 degree firing arc, and at only armor 7 and citadel 5, that's also nothing too amazing. It does come with 6 hull points overall though, but nothing noteworthy in terms of toughness. We've definitely seen cheaper and tougher units within this fleet. These, however, do come with forward deployment, allowing you to deploy them pretty much up to 12-inch away from the enemy deployment zone, so quite far out. They are immobile though, so you have to deploy them at the same time as aerial units, so your opponent will definitely know where you have placed your fortifications. Makes sense. And they are strategic assets. This is a big one though, because if your opponent does not destroy them at the end of the game, they are worth 1 victory point to you. However, if your opponent manages to destroy them during an assault and basically steal your forts from you, they are the ones getting +1 victory points. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. I suppose that's also one of the reasons why so many people do not really play with them all that much. Which is a shame, because if you just hang them back a bit, you can really put their advanced repair facilities to good use. I mean, they are chucking 4 dice during the repair step, and they can repair a bit of chip damage that your opponent has done at them. On top of that, they come with the heavy escort rule, so they increase the ADV and SDV of any models within, I believe it's 4 inches by +2. Add yet another utility rule in the form of a supply depot, allowing you to restock on any limited ammunition. I think it's actually a reasonable investment for 68 points. Just make sure that you do not drop it too far out, so your opponent has an easy time assaulting them. The Pereira Heavy platform is the larger platform, the MAS 3 one, which still comes with the same defensive stats of 5 armor and citadel 12, with 12 hull points between them. It is a bit of an odd weapon when it comes to weapon loadouts, because it's got 3 gun batteries, but the arcs are such that you can only ever fire 2 of them at the same target, so not really ideal in terms of firepower, and they do clock in at 160 points. Now mind you, 2 gun batteries shooting at something is not horribly much extra that you're paying for that amount of firepower. However, these things come with way fewer utility compared to the Elvas that we've just discussed. This one only has the heavy escort rule to go along with it, so it only increases your ADV and SDV by 2, so not that amazing. However, if you want to increase that slightly, you can always attach a Vasco battle platform for only 55 points to that one, and then you basically get another heavy gun battery with a 360 degree arc to fire at your opponent. So that's 3 of them for a total investment of 215 points. And then you have 2 units that your opponent will have to destroy by the end of the game, or you're getting 2 victory points out of it. And this one also comes with the heavy escort rule, so you can get some really good defensive bonuses if you are hanging around near your own fortification. I suppose the biggest reason why we don't see more of them is because you can only really take them in generic faction fleets, and the problem with that is then you're not really using the strategic reserve rule all that much with them. I think that's a shame, because I've been thinking about this just the other day, and you can take this one as a surface unit in a generic build, And that means that you can do something like take a Magenta, which is a ship that is really, really strong if you can give it strategic reserves, and then just have the surfeit unit slot that you have to take one of these battle platforms that are Portuguese. Their rules of forward deployment prohibit you from putting it into reserve, meaning I'm going to have to see how this pans out, but I think you cannot place this unit in reserve ever, meaning you can have a unit that you can have on the table with your flagship just floating around in reserves, and just cheekily make a bit of a selection of what you put in reserves through these battle platforms. It remains to be seen though. I'll make sure that I'll give you an update on the next video when I do, because this is pretty much the end of the video. There's a nice little teaser of a Spanish airship, but it's not much point in discussing those rules because those are extremely preliminary anyway. It's just a model of which I've included the artwork here again because it just makes me happy. The Spanish galleon with that balloon on top of it, it just looks drop dead gorgeous. Anyway, this was the first one of the by now infamously long ORBAT deep dives. I do hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and yeah, if you were looking forward to the next ones, make sure you give the channel a follow and subscribe to it. With all that said and done, I do hope to see you in the next video. Bye!